He showed up uninvited to his pregnant ex-wife's baby shower, smiling as he poured red wine down her dress, humiliating her in front of everyone. But when her military husband walked in, the tables turned in a way no one saw coming. Stay till the end, subscribe to this channel and watch as one act of cruelty ignites a dangerous game of revenge, power, and survival that will leave you breathless. The scream cut through the room before the glass hit the floor. "What are you doing here?" The words came out of Emerald Carter's mouth sharp and breathless, her hands instinctively moving to her stomach as the front door swung wider. 50 people froze. Laughter died mid-air. A balloon popped somewhere near the ceiling and nobody laughed. Maxwell Reynolds stepped fully inside like he belonged there. In his hand was a dark glass bottle wrapped in gold foil. Red wine. Expensive. Deliberate. "Relax," Maxwell said, smiling thinly. "I'm just here to congratulate you." Emerald's chest tightened. Her vision tunneled. The baby kicked hard, like it sensed danger. "No," Monica snapped, moving between them. "You need to leave. Now." Maxwell's eyes slid past Monica and locked back onto Emerald, 7 months pregnant in a white maternity dress that had been chosen carefully, lovingly. A dress meant for pictures. For joy. For proof that she had survived. "Wow," Maxwell said softly. "You got big." A murmur rippled through the guests. Someone whispered his name. Someone else reached for their phone. Emerald swallowed. "This isn't appropriate. Please go." Maxwell chuckled and took another step forward. "Appropriate. After everything I did for you." Monica raised her phone. "I'm calling the police." "Go ahead," Maxwell replied calmly. "I won't be long." Emerald felt her legs weaken. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She hadn't seen Maxwell in almost 3 years. Therapy had taught her grounding techniques. Breathe. Name 5 things you can see. For you can touch. But none of that mattered when the man who once controlled her life stood 5 feet away, smiling like nothing had ever happened. "You look peaceful," Maxwell said, eyes flicking to her stomach. "Guess you found someone else to fund your little fantasy." "That's enough," Monica warned. Maxwell raised the bottle slightly. "I brought a gift." Emerald shook her head. "I don't want anything from you." The smile faded. "You always did that," Maxwell said, voice dropping. "Act grateful in public, ungrateful in private." A guest near the window whispered, "Is that her ex?" "Yes," another replied. "The one she helped build." Maxwell turned slowly, scanning the room, absorbing the whispers, the stares, the judgment. His jaw tightened. "You people don't know the story," he said loudly. "You see a pregnant woman and assume she's a saint." Emerald's breathing grew shallow. The walls felt closer. Her hands trembled. Maxwell took one more step. "Stop," Emerald whispered. He didn't. "You were nothing without me," Maxwell continued. "I gave you structure, purpose, direction." Monica moved again, but Maxwell's next words stopped her cold. "Where's the hero?" he asked, smirking. "Your soldier husband. Off playing dress-up somewhere." The room erupted. "That's her husband you're talking about," someone snapped. "He's deployed," another said. Maxwell laughed, short and cruel. "Of course he is." Emerald's knees buckled. She grabbed the back of a chair. "Leave," she said, tears spilling despite her effort to hold them back. "Please." For a moment, just a moment, it looked like Maxwell might listen. Then his gaze dropped to the white dress. Something dark flickered behind his eyes. "Funny thing about white," he said quietly. "It shows everything." The bottle tipped. The cork popped. Time slowed. "No!" Monica screamed. The red wine poured out in a violent stream, soaking into the fabric, blooming across Emerald's stomach like a wound. Gasps filled the room. Someone shouted. A chair scraped backward. Emerald screamed as the cold liquid soaked through the dress she'd saved for this day. Her hands shook as she tried to cover herself, humiliation crashing down harder than the wine itself. Maxwell dropped the empty bottle. It shattered at his feet. "Oops," he said flatly. "Guess I ruined it." A phone clattered to the floor. Someone was crying. Someone else yelled, "Get him out." Emerald collapsed into a chair, sobbing, her body shaking uncontrollably. The baby kicked again. Harder. "This is assault," Monica screamed. "You're sick." Maxwell backed up slowly, hands raised, playing innocent. "I brought a gift." It slipped. "Get out," multiple voices shouted. But Maxwell's eyes never left Emerald. "That's what happens," he said calmly, "when you pretend your past doesn't exist. If you've ever been humiliated by someone who once claimed to love you, someone who waited until you were vulnerable to remind you who they thought they owned, pause for a second. You're not weak. You're not alone. And stories like this exist because people need to see abusers exposed. If that matters to you, stay with this story." Maxwell turned toward the door. And then the room went silent. Heavy boots stepped onto the porch outside. The doorframe filled with a tall figure in full military dress uniform, posture rigid, eyes sharp, presence immediate. Emerald. Her head snapped up. Relief and disbelief collided in her chest. Maxwell froze. The man stepped inside slowly, eyes sweeping the room, taking in the shattered glass, the wine-soaked dress, his wife shaking in a chair. His jaw clenched. "What happened here?" he asked, voice calm but lethal. Maxwell swallowed. Emerald whispered one word through tears. "Maxwell." The soldier's gaze locked onto him. And the door clicked shut behind him. Maxwell Reynolds had always believed power was something you could manufacture. He stood frozen just long enough to recognize the uniform, not just military, but ceremonial. The kind worn when respect mattered. When authority didn't need to raise its voice. Andre Carter didn't rush forward. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. That was what made it terrifying. Andre crossed the room slowly, stopping beside Emerald. His eyes never left Maxwell, but his hand reached down with practiced gentleness, steadying Emerald's shaking shoulders. "You're safe," he said quietly. Emerald broke. She clutched his sleeve, sobbing into the fabric, the red-stained dress pressed against his uniform. Andre felt the tremors in her body, felt the way her breath came in fractured gasps. He slipped off his jacket without looking away from Maxwell and wrapped it around her, covering the stain, covering the humiliation. Maxwell scoffed. "So you're the replacement." Andre didn't react. Maxwell took a breath, regaining some of his swagger. "Look man, this doesn't concern you. This is between me and my ex-wife." Andre finally spoke again. "You poured alcohol on a pregnant woman." Maxwell shrugged. "It was an accident." A ripple of anger surged through the room. "Accident?" Monica snapped. "We all saw you." Maxwell turned sharply. "You invited me. Don't rewrite history." Andre straightened, his full height now impossible to ignore. "You were not invited." Maxwell tilted his head. "You sure about that?" "Because from where I'm standing, she wouldn't have anything if it weren't for me." Andre took one step forward. Maxwell instinctively stepped back. That small movement didn't go unnoticed. Andre's voice remained calm. "Explain." Maxwell laughed, though his throat felt dry. "She likes to play victim. Always did. I built a company from nothing while she played nurse and pretended she was sacrificing." Emerald lifted her head. Her eyes were red, but something else flickered there now. Hurt, yes, but also disbelief that he could still lie so easily. "I gave you everything," she said hoarsely. "You know that." Maxwell rolled his eyes. "You gave what you could afford. Don't confuse participation with ownership. If you've ever had someone rewrite your sacrifices like they were nothing, if you've ever watched someone stand on the ladder you built and claim they climbed alone, you know that kind of rage. The quiet kind. The kind that stays with you. Andre saw it ripple through the guests. He saw phones being raised now, discreetly, recording. Maxwell noticed too. Put the phones down, Maxwell snapped. This is private. No, Andre said. It stopped being private when you walked in. Maxwell's jaw tightened. You think wearing a uniform makes you some kind of hero? Andre didn't answer immediately. He glanced down at Emerald. Do you want him to leave? Emerald nodded, barely able to speak. Andre looked back up. You need to leave. Now. Maxwell laughed again, louder this time. Or what? The room held its breath. Andre stepped closer, his presence closing in, voice low. Or the police will escort you out in handcuffs. Maxwell sneered. For what? A spilled drink. Monica held up her phone. Assault. Trespassing. Harassment. Pick one. Maxwell's eyes darted around the room, calculating. He hadn't expected resistance. He hadn't expected witnesses willing to stand up. And he definitely hadn't expected a man like Andre. Still, he couldn't stop himself. She's mine, Maxwell said suddenly. She always will be. Andre's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping near his ear. That, he said slowly, is the last thing you will ever say to my wife. Maxwell's face flushed. Your wife, he mocked. You think a ring and a uniform erase history? Andre didn't blink. History is the reason you're standing where you are. Maxwell took another step back, bumping into a table. Cups rattled. A guest steadied it, eyes hard. You ruined her, Maxwell spat. You know that. She was better when she needed me. Silence fell heavy and thick. Emerald's hand tightened on Andre's sleeve. Andre spoke, each word precise. You're projecting. Maxwell laughed weakly. You soldiers love your psych terms. Andre took one final step forward. Maxwell's back hit the wall. I've seen men like you, Andre said. They mistake fear for respect. Control for love. And when it's gone, they panic. Maxwell's breath quickened. Touch me and I'll sue you. Andre nodded once. That's your choice. He turned to Monica. Call the police. Monica didn't hesitate. Maxwell's composure cracked. You think this ends well for you? He snapped at Emerald. You think he'll stay when things get hard? Emerald looked up at him then. Really looked. No, she said softly. I know he will. That did it. Maxwell lunged forward, rage exploding across his face. Andre moved faster. In one controlled motion, Andre caught Maxwell's arm, twisted, and forced him to the ground. The room erupted in shouts. Maxwell hit the floor hard, the air knocked out of him. Don't resist, Andre warned calmly, knee pinning Maxwell's shoulder. Maxwell struggled, panic replacing arrogance. Get off me. You can't do this. Andre leaned closer. I already did. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Phones were openly recording now. If you've ever wished someone had stepped in when you were being broken, if you've ever dreamed of the moment the bully finally faced consequences, stay with this story, subscribe to this channel because this is the moment everything starts to change. Maxwell lay there, humiliated, powerless, as flashing red and blue lights reflected through the windows. And outside, a patrol car pulled up. The police didn't rush in. They took their time, like they already knew who the problem was. Maxwell lay face down on the living room floor, cheek pressed against hardwood, Andre's knee firm between his shoulder blades. The weight wasn't crushing, just enough to remind him that struggling was pointless. Maxwell's breath came out ragged, not from pain, but from something far worse. Powerlessness. This is excessive, Maxwell barked, his voice cracking despite the effort to sound composed. I'm being assaulted in front of witnesses. Yes, Andre replied evenly. You are being detained. A murmur of agreement spread through the room. The front door opened wider, and two officers stepped inside, eyes already scanning the scene, the overturned chair, the shattered bottle, the dark red stains bleeding through the fabric of Emerald's dress beneath Andre's jacket. One officer crouched. "Sir, are you injured?" Maxwell seized the opening. "Finally. Get this man off me. He attacked me." The officer didn't move Andre yet. "What's your name?" "Maxwell Reynolds. CEO of Reynolds Strategic." The officer nodded slowly, then looked up at Monica. "Ma'am, who called this in?" "I did," Monica said. Her voice didn't shake. "He forced his way in and assaulted a pregnant woman." The officer's gaze shifted to Emerald. She sat frozen on the chair, hands trembling, Andre's jacket clutched tight around her body like armor. Her eyes were unfocused, distant, as if part of her was still years back when Maxwell's voice could reduce her to silence. "Emerald," Andre said softly. "They need to hear you." She swallowed. Emerald lifted her head anyway. "He came uninvited," she said. "He mocked me. And then he poured wine on me." The officer's jaw tightened. "You're pregnant. 7 months." Maxwell scoffed. "It was wine, not acid." That was the wrong thing to say. The second officer straightened. "Sir, you're under arrest for assault and trespassing." Maxwell's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." The cuffs clicked closed around his wrists. The sound echoed louder than the sirens. Andre released him slowly, stepping back without ceremony. Maxwell was hauled to his feet, red-faced, sweating now, the tailored suit wrinkled and stained with dust. "You're making a mistake," Maxwell snapped, turning toward Emerald as they led him away. "This will follow you. People will hear my side." Emerald met his gaze. And for the first time in years, she didn't flinch. "They already are," she said. Phones were raised openly now. No one hid it anymore. Maxwell was escorted outside, the crowd parting instinctively. His shoes scraped against the pavement. Flashing lights bathed his face in red and blue, stripping away the illusion of control he'd worn for so long. A neighbor leaned out a window. "What happened?" Someone answered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He attacked his pregnant ex-wife." Maxwell's shoulders sagged. Inside, the room exhaled. Emerald's legs finally gave out. Andre caught her before she slid to the floor, lowering her carefully, one arm braced behind her back. "I've got you," he murmured. She pressed her forehead to his chest, tears soaking into the uniform. Not loud sobs, quiet ones. The kind that come when your body realizes the danger has passed. Monica knelt beside them. "The baby." Emerald nodded shakily. "She's moving." Andre let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Outside, Maxwell was pushed into the back of the patrol car. He twisted in his seat, staring through the window as if daring someone to look away. Andre didn't. They locked eyes for a brief second. Maxwell mouthed something. Andre didn't need to hear it. The door slammed shut. The patrol car pulled away. Emerald's breathing steadied slowly, but her hands still shook. "I didn't think he'd ever stop," she whispered. Andre brushed her hair back gently. "He doesn't get to decide when your life is peaceful." Monica squeezed her hand. "This isn't over, but he's done here." Outside, neighbors whispered. Inside, guests moved quietly, some offering tissues, others hugs. The baby shower decorations sagged, deflated balloons brushing the ceiling like remnants of something innocent that had been violated. Emerald stared at the stained dress beneath the jacket. "I ruined it," she said softly. Andre shook his head. "He did. And he doesn't get to define today." But even as the words left his mouth, Andre felt something shift. Because men like Maxwell didn't disappear quietly. They retaliated. And somewhere in the back of the patrol car, staring at his cuffed hands, Maxwell Reynolds was already planning how to make sure this wasn't the end. The officer's radio crackled. And Maxwell smiled. Maxwell didn't sleep that night. The holding cell smelled like disinfectant and old regret. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, too bright to ignore, too dull to offer clarity. He sat on the narrow bench, wrists still aching where the cuffs had bitten into his skin, replaying the moment over and over. The uniform, the eyes watching, the way the room had turned against him. It wasn't supposed to go like that. He'd planned the entrance. The bottle. The words. He'd imagined Emerald shrinking, guests awkwardly laughing, someone asking him to stay calm. He'd imagined leaving on his terms. Instead, he'd been pinned to the floor like a criminal. He clenched his jaw, anger coiling tight in his chest. This wasn't justice. This was a setup. Across the hall, a phone rang. A door opened. Laughter drifted in from somewhere else in the building. Maxwell stared at the wall and promised himself this wasn't over. By morning, his lawyer arrived, expensive suit, efficient smile, eyes already calculating the damage. Assault with aggravating circumstances, the lawyer said quietly, flipping through notes. Pregnant victim. Multiple witnesses. Video. Maxwell scoffed. It was wine. It looked like humiliation, the lawyer replied. Publicly. Maxwell leaned forward. So we control the narrative. The lawyer hesitated. We try. By noon, the first clip hit social media. A shaky video, 30 seconds long. No context. Just Maxwell's voice, sharp, mocking, then the bottle tipping, the gasp, the scream. The caption read, "He poured wine on his pregnant ex-wife at her baby shower." It spread like fire in dry grass. By the time Maxwell posted bail, his phone was vibrating non-stop. Missed calls. Texts. Emails Maxwell'd urgent. He scrolled through comments with a growing sense of disbelief. This is abuse. Arrest him again. She supported him for years. Where were the consequences before? His name trended by evening. Across town, Emerald sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone as Andre paced the room. He'd insisted on coming home early, refused to leave her alone. The house felt quieter than it ever had, like it was holding its breath. "Don't read the comments," Andre said gently. "I need to," Emerald replied. Her voice was steady, surprising even herself. "I need to see it." She watched the video once. Then again. The moment the wine poured made her flinch every time. But there was something else too. The sound of people gasping. The way no one laughed. The way someone shouted for him to stop. She wasn't alone in that room. She never had been. Her phone buzzed with messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Old co-workers. Distant relatives. Women she barely knew. "This happened to me too. Thank you for speaking up. I wish someone had stopped him sooner." Andre knelt in front of her. "He's trying to spin it." Emerald nodded. "I know." Because Maxwell was already on television. He sat stiffly in a studio chair, jaw set, hair perfectly combed, hands folded like a man wronged by circumstance. The anchor's voice was calm but firm. "Mr. Reynolds, witnesses say you entered uninvited." Maxwell smiled tightly. "I was concerned. I brought a gift." Emotions escalated. "And the wine." "A mistake," he said smoothly. "An accident amplified by hysteria." Emerald turned the TV off. "That's it?" Andre asked quietly. "That's what he's always done," Emerald replied. "Make me sound unstable." Andre's phone rang. He listened, his expression darkening. "He filed a restraining order," Andre said. "Against me." Emerald laughed once, a short sound edged with disbelief. "For what?" "Excessive force." The audacity landed heavy. By evening, Maxwell's business partners released a statement. Carefully worded. Concerned. Reviewing internal policies. By midnight, a major client quietly pulled out. Maxwell sat alone in his penthouse, lights off, city glowing beneath the windows like a taunt. He refreshed his email again and again, watching opportunities dissolve in real time. He slammed his laptop shut. Ungrateful, he muttered. All of them. He poured himself a drink, hands shaking now, not from fear but from rage. He'd built everything. He'd earned respect. And now a woman who couldn't let go was threatening to ruin him. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. We need to talk. This is getting worse. He stared at it, then typed back. Meet me. Across town, Emerald lay awake, one hand on her stomach, the other gripping Andre's. The baby rolled gently beneath her palm, grounding her in the present. What if he doesn't stop? She asked softly. Andre didn't answer right away. He will try, he said finally. Men like him always do. Emerald swallowed. I don't want this life for our daughter. Andre leaned down, pressing his forehead to hers. Then we don't give it to her. Outside, a car idled at the corner longer than necessary. Inside the darkened vehicle, Maxwell watched the house with narrowed eyes, phone glowing faintly in his hand. He smiled to himself. Because if there's one thing he'd never learned how to do, it was lose quietly. The first knock came just after dawn. Andre was already awake. He'd slept lightly, instincts trained to notice what didn't belong. When the sound echoed through the house, sharp, official, his body went still. Emerald stirred. What is it? Andre kissed her forehead. Stay here. He opened the door to find a uniformed officer holding a clipboard, posture neutral, expression unreadable. Mr. Carter? The officer asked. Yes. You've been served. Andre took the papers, scanning the heading. His jaw tightened. Emerald appeared behind him, wrapped in a robe, one hand instinctively cradling her stomach. She read his face before she read the words. What did he do now? She asked. Andre turned the papers so she could see. A temporary restraining order. Filed by Maxwell Reynolds. Alleging assault. Claiming fear for personal safety. Emerald let out a shaky laugh that collapsed into something close to a sob. He's accusing you? Andre nodded. It doesn't mean it'll hold. But it means he's not done. The officer cleared his throat. Court date is listed there. Until then, avoid contact. As the door closed, the house felt smaller. Emerald sank onto the couch, the weight of it all pressing down on her chest. He poured wine on me, she whispered. In front of everyone. And he's the victim. Andre knelt in front of her, steady and solid. This is what he does. He flips reality until people doubt themselves. By noon, the next escalation hit. Emerald's employer called. We're getting calls, her supervisor said carefully. Reporters. Blogs. They want comment. Emerald's stomach dropped. About what? The incident, the woman replied. Your ex-husband claims you orchestrated it. Emerald closed her eyes. That's not true. I know, her supervisor said gently. But HR needs to assess risk. We're putting you on temporary leave. Temporary leave. A phrase dressed up to sound kind. Andre watched her hang up, her hands shaking again. This is my fault, Emerald said. He's punishing everyone around me. Andre shook his head. No. He's showing everyone who he is. But Maxwell wasn't done showing. That afternoon, a longer video surfaced. Maxwell sat at a desk this time, lighting soft, voice measured. He spoke about betrayal, about being provoked, about false narratives, and weaponized victimhood. I made mistakes in my marriage, he said, eyes damp, perfectly controlled. But I would never intentionally harm a pregnant woman. The comments exploded. Some defended him. Loudly. Aggressively. Men can't defend themselves anymore. She wanted attention. Military guy went too far. Emerald stopped scrolling. Andre took the phone from her hand. That's enough. But people believe him, she whispered. Andre met her eyes. Some always will. If you've ever realized that telling the truth doesn't guarantee justice, that some people will side with power no matter what, you understand how lonely that moment feels. It's why so many stay silent. By evening, Maxwell's lawyer filed a motion requesting Emerald's medical records, citing emotional instability. Emerald stared at the email in disbelief. He wants my therapy notes. Andre's hands clenched into fists. He doesn't get to touch that. He knows what he's doing, Emerald said softly. He wants to scare me. And it was working. That night, Emerald woke from a nightmare, gasping, heart racing. Andre was at her side instantly, grounding her, reminding her where she was, who she was with. I don't want to be brave anymore, she said into his shoulder. I just want peace. Andre held her tighter. Peace isn't passive. It's protected. The next morning, the doorbell rang again. This time, it wasn't the police. It was a woman in a blazer, clipboard tucked under her arm. Child Protective Services, she said. Emerald's blood ran cold. Why? Andre asked, already stepping forward. We received an anonymous report expressing concern for the safety of an unborn child, the woman replied. We need to ask a few questions. Emerald's knees weakened. Andre caught her hand. Anonymous. They both knew exactly who it was. The woman's gaze flicked to the cameras mounted discreetly near the door. This won't take long. Inside, questions were asked. Calm, procedural, but invasive. Any history of domestic conflict? Any restraining orders? Any episodes of emotional distress? Emerald answered honestly, voice shaking but steadying with each truth spoken. Andre sat beside her, presence unyielding. After an hour, the woman stood. We'll file our report. Am I under investigation? Emerald asked quietly. The woman hesitated. Not at this time. The door closed. Emerald broke down. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about survival. Across the city, Maxwell watched updates roll in on his laptop. He'd made calls, pulled favors, nudged narratives. He leaned back, satisfied. They'll fold, he said aloud. They always do. His phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. You're pushing too hard. The videos are multiplying. Maxwell smiled. Good. Because attention, good or bad, meant leverage. He opened a new email, subject line already typed. Settlement proposal. He began to write. At the same time, Andre's phone buzzed. A text from an unfamiliar number. If you want this to stop, tell her to stay quiet. Andre looked at the screen, then at Emerald. His expression hardened. Outside, thunder rolled low and distant. And for the first time since the baby shower, Andre realized something chilling. Maxwell wasn't just trying to rewrite the past. He was trying to decide their future. Emerald didn't answer the settlement email. She read it once, then again, hands steady in a way that surprised her. The words were polished, legal, almost generous. Money offered in exchange for silence, a clause demanding no interviews, no posts, no testimony beyond what was legally unavoidable. He wants to buy my voice, she said quietly. Andre watched her face, the way resolve replaced fear. He wants to end this on his terms. Emerald closed the laptop. He doesn't get that anymore. That afternoon, they met with their attorney. A woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a calm presence that cut through noise. She listened without interrupting, fingers steepled, occasionally glancing at the videos already queued on her tablet. This is a pattern, the attorney said finally. Public humiliation. Retaliation. Legal intimidation. He's escalating because he's losing control. Emerald exhaled. So what do? We document everything, the attorney replied. And we stop playing defense. Andre felt the shift immediately. Meaning, she said. We tell the truth on record. Emerald's heart thudded. He'll come after me harder. He already is, the attorney said gently. Silence won't protect you. It will only protect him. They recorded a sworn statement that evening. Emerald spoke slowly, carefully, naming dates, incidents, words he used, ways he'd isolated and belittled her long before the wine. Andre sat beside her, visible, unwavering. When it was done, Emerald felt hollow and lighter. Maxwell watched the clip the next morning. Not the full statement. A leaked preview. 30 seconds. Emerald's voice steady. Andre's hand visible on her knee. The attorney's calm introduction. Maxwell slammed his desk. They're painting me as a monster, he snapped into the phone. You did that yourself, the voice on the other end said. You need to stop. Maxwell hung up. His phone buzzed with notifications he no longer opened. Sponsors paused. A board meeting was rescheduled. The restraining order he'd filed stalled, then quietly dissolved under scrutiny. He poured another drink, ignoring the tremor in his hand. Across town, Emerald's name trended again, but this time the comments shifted. She's brave. This is what abuse looks like. Protect her. Emerald scrolled, tears blurring the screen. Not from fear, from recognition. Women shared stories in threads beneath the video. Men admitted they'd stayed silent when they shouldn't have. People apologized to people they loved. The call came just after dinner. Andre answered, listened, his expression tightening. That was the detective, he said. They're reopening the case. New charges. Emerald's breath caught. Against him. Yes. A knock followed minutes later. 2 officers this time, respectful, direct. Ms. Carter, one said, we need you to come in tomorrow to give a formal statement. There's been another report. Emerald frowned. Another. The officer hesitated. A former employee came forward. Maxwell's former assistant sat under fluorescent lights, hands folded tight, eyes darting to the door. She spoke softly, then faster, as if afraid courage might expire. He did this before, she said. Different woman. Different setting. He poured a drink on her at a fundraiser and laughed when she cried. The detective nodded. Why now? Because I saw the video, she replied. And I couldn't sleep. Emerald heard about it the next morning and cried. Not for herself, but for the woman who'd been silenced before. Truth was spreading. Maxwell felt it closing in. He paced his penthouse, blinds half drawn, city lights flickering like judgment. He drafted statements, deleted them. He called favors that didn't answer. He stared at a framed photo of himself at a gala, smiling, untouchable. His phone buzzed. We can't protect you anymore. He hurled the phone across the room. You think I'm done, he muttered. I decide when this ends. He grabbed his keys. At the hospital, Emerald's contractions started early. Not strong, just enough to steal her breath and spike Andre's pulse. We should go, he said, already grabbing the bag. They were halfway down the hallway when Emerald froze. What? Andre asked. She stared at the elevator doors. Maxwell stood there when they opened. Suit rumpled. Eyes bright with something unhinged. A folded document in his hand. Perfect timing, he said. Andre stepped between them instantly. Leave. Maxwell smiled thinly. I just want to talk. A nurse glanced over, sensing tension. Emerald's heart raced. The baby kicked hard. Not here, Andre warned. Maxwell's gaze flicked to Emerald's stomach. You're really going through with this? Andre's voice dropped. You have 10 seconds. Maxwell leaned in, lowering his voice. Sign the settlement. Tonight. Or I release everything. Everything? Emerald asked, despite herself. Photos, Maxwell said softly. Messages. Therapy appointments. I'll make you look unstable. Unfit. Andre's fists clenched. Emerald straightened. No, she said. Maxwell blinked. No, she repeated louder. You don't get to scare me anymore. A security guard approached. Sir, you need to move along. Maxwell backed away slowly, eyes locked on Emerald. You think this makes you strong? Emerald met his stare. I know it does. Security escorted him out. Andre wrapped an arm around her. You okay? She nodded, shaking. I am now. That night, as Emerald slept in the hospital bed, contractions easing, Andre sat by the window watching rain streak down glass. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. If she testifies tomorrow, someone gets hurt. Andre's jaw tightened. He looked at Emerald, peaceful for the moment, and realized the truth with chilling clarity. Maxwell wasn't bluffing anymore. And morning was coming. Andre didn't reply to the message. He stared at the screen until it dimmed, then turned the phone face down and stood. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of a monitor and Emerald's slow breathing. She slept on her side, one hand resting over her stomach, the other curled loosely near her face. For the first time in days, her forehead wasn't creased with worry. Andre stepped into the hallway and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. I need a favor, he said when the line picked up. Now. By morning, the hospital had tightened security. 2 guards stationed near the maternity wing. Nurses briefed quietly. Emerald noticed the difference immediately. What's going on? She asked. Andre kept his voice calm. Precaution. She studied his face. Did he do something? Andre hesitated for half a second too long. Emerald sat up. Andre. He exhaled. He threatened us. Silence filled the space between them, thick and heavy. I won't let him, Andre added quickly. I promise. Emerald nodded, but fear flickered across her eyes, not for herself, but for the child inside her. I don't want our daughter born into this, she whispered. Andre took her hand. She won't be. Outside the hospital, a black sedan idled across the street longer than it needed to. A man inside pretended to scroll on his phone while watching the entrance. Maxwell had learned to outsource discomfort. He watched a live news segment on his tablet, volume low. The anchor spoke carefully about new allegations and a widening investigation. Maxwell smirked. Allegations, he muttered. That's all they ever are. His burner phone buzzed. Security is tight. Maxwell typed back. Find another angle. Across town, Emerald sat in a small interview room at the precinct, hands folded, attorney beside her. She spoke clearly, naming incidents she'd once buried, nights of silent treatment, public shaming disguised as jokes, the way Maxwell would apologize just enough to reset the cycle. The detective listened without interruption. When Emerald finished, the detective nodded. Thank you. This helps more than you know. Outside, cameras waited. Emerald paused at the door. I can't do this, she whispered. Andre squeezed her hand. You already are. They stepped out together. Questions flew. Do you feel safe? Are you afraid of retaliation? What do you want to say to other women watching? Emerald stopped. She looked directly into the lens. I want them to know, she said, voice steady, that if someone humiliates you, threatens you, or tries to silence you, none of that is love. And you don't owe them your quiet. If you've ever swallowed your truth because it felt safer, if you've ever been told to protect someone else's reputation at the cost of your own peace, this is your reminder. Silence isn't strength. Survival is. The clip spread within minutes. Maxwell threw the tablet across the room when he saw it. She's turning them against me, he snarled. His assistant, new, nervous, hovered by the door. Sir, the board wants an emergency call. Maxwell waved him off. Cancel. You can't, the assistant said. They're voting. Maxwell's phone rang again. This time, he answered. You're finished, the voice on the other end said flatly. Step down or we force you out. Maxwell laughed, sharp and brittle. You're scared. Yes, the voice replied. Of you. The line went dead. That afternoon, a package arrived at Emerald and Andre's house. No return address. Andre opened it outside. Inside was a framed photo, Emerald years earlier, exhausted in scrubs, asleep on a couch. On the back, 3 words were written in black Maxweller. I remember everything. Andre's jaw tightened. He walked back inside, locked the door, and called the detective. This is harassment, he said. And it's escalating. Emerald watched from the hallway, heart pounding. What was it? Andre met her eyes. He wants us afraid. Emerald nodded slowly. Then we don't give him that. But fear crept in anyway. That night, the power went out. The house fell into darkness, sudden and complete. Emerald gasped, clutching her stomach as a contraction tightened unexpectedly. Andre, she whispered. I'm here, he said instantly, phone flashlight already on. It's okay. A noise sounded outside, a soft scrape near the back gate. Andre moved toward the window, every muscle alert. Call the police, he said quietly. Emerald dialed with shaking hands. Andre peered through the slats. The gate swung slightly in the wind. Nothing else. The lights flickered back on. Police arrived minutes later, checked the perimeter, found nothing. Probably a coincidence, one officer said gently. But we'll add patrols. After they left, Emerald couldn't stop shaking. He's in my head again, she said, voice breaking. I hate that he still has that power. Andre knelt in front of her. He doesn't. Fear doesn't mean weakness. It means you care. At dawn, Emerald's water broke. Pain ripped through her body, sudden and undeniable. Andre grabbed the bag, hands steady despite the surge of adrenaline. It's time. As they rushed to the car, Andre noticed a figure across the street, hood up, face obscured, watching. The figure lifted a phone. Andre slammed the car door and peeled away. At the hospital, nurses moved fast. Emerald gripped the rails, breathing through waves of pain, Andre by her side, murmuring steady reassurance. Hours passed. Outside the delivery room, a man in a hoodie slipped past security during a shift change, keeping his head down, moving with purpose. Maxwell's burner phone buzzed. I'm inside. Maxwell smiled to himself in the shadows of his apartment. Good, he whispered. Let's end this. Inside the delivery room, Emerald cried out as another contraction hit, stronger than the last. Andre squeezed her hand. You're doing great. The door handle turned. Andre looked up and froze. The door didn't open. It stopped halfway, blocked by a nurse who hadn't been there seconds earlier. Her badge flashed as she planted her foot firmly against the frame, eyes sharp, voice calm but unyielding. Visiting hours are over. The man in the hoodie hesitated. That half-second was all it took. Security flooded the corridor. Hands grabbed fabric. The hood was yanked back, revealing a face pale with rage and panic. Not Maxwell, but someone desperate enough to sell loyalty for cash. Andre stepped in front of Emerald without thinking, his body instinctively shielding her as another contraction tore through her. Get him out, Andre snapped. Emerald screamed, pain and terror colliding, as the man thrashed and shouted. He said she deserved it. He said. The words were cut off as he was dragged away. But the damage was done. Emerald's heart rate spiked. Monitors screamed. Nurses rushed in, voices overlapping, movements urgent. We're losing her rhythm. Prep for emergency delivery. Now. Andre felt the floor tilt beneath him. Stay with me, he whispered, forehead pressed to Emerald's. Please. Just stay. Emerald's eyes searched his, glassy but determined. If anything happens, she gasped. Promise me she grows up knowing this wasn't normal. That none of this was love. Andre swallowed hard. I promise. Outside the hospital, Maxwell watched updates roll in on his screen. Police scanners. Social feeds. Rumors spiraling out of control. Then his smile faded. A notification popped up. Person of interest detained. Cooperating. Maxwell's fingers tightened around the phone. Useless, he hissed. His assistant burst into the room, breathless. Sir, your accounts are frozen. All of them. And the board just released a statement distancing themselves from you. Maxwell stood slowly, anger coiling tight and cold. She thinks she's won, he said. She hasn't. Back in the operating room, time blurred. Bright lights. Sharp commands. Andre stood helplessly to the side as doctors worked, every second stretching like a lifetime. Then, a cry. Small. Fragile. Alive. Andre's knees nearly buckled. She's here, a nurse said, holding up a tiny, red-faced miracle. It's a girl. Tears streamed down Andre's face as he laughed and cried all at once. But Emerald wasn't responding. Emerald. Andre said, panic surging again. Baby, look at me. Doctors exchanged a look. We need a moment, one said gently. Andre's heart slammed against his ribs. If you've ever loved someone who was punished for speaking up, if you've ever feared that telling the truth would cost you everything, remember this. The cost of silence is often far greater. Outside the OR, a detective answered his phone, listening carefully. Yes, he said after a pause. We just found something else. Across town, Maxwell froze as his doorbell rang. 3 sharp knocks. He didn't move. The knocking came again, louder. This is the police, a voice called. Maxwell Hale, open the door. Maxwell backed away slowly, eyes darting to the window, then to the phone vibrating in his hand. At the hospital, Andre sat with his newborn daughter pressed to his chest, whispering promises she couldn't yet understand, while staring at the closed operating room doors. Waiting. Hoping. And somewhere between justice and loss, the final reckoning was just beginning. The night after the birth was quiet, deceptively so. The hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and baby powder, and the soft hum of machines created a rhythm that made Andre feel like time had slowed just enough for danger to creep in unnoticed. Emerald slept, exhausted but alive, the baby tucked safely against her chest. Andre never let go of her hand. Not for a second. Outside, a shadow moved across the hospital grounds. Someone knew exactly which room she was in. Someone who hadn't given up, who refused to let go. Maxwell Reynolds paced his penthouse, phone in hand, fury coiling tight in his chest. Security alerts had popped up. His network, once loyal, was abandoning him. Every social post defending him was now drowned by the flood of public outrage. His business partners had pulled contracts. Sponsors had terminated deals. And still he wasn't finished. He typed rapidly. A message went out. Do what I say, or I make sure she pays. Somewhere across town, a former colleague received the text and hesitated, finger trembling over the keyboard. Andre's phone buzzed. A number he didn't recognize. We know she's vulnerable. Now's your chance. Andre's jaw tightened. He blocked the number immediately, but the warning had its effect. Emerald shifted in her sleep, tiny fingers curling around his hand. He looked down at her, a quiet fury building. No one touches her. No one threatens this family. In the hospital hallway, the detective who had been coordinating the case walked in, a folder in hand. We've got something new, he said, eyes serious. He's escalating further than we thought. Andre's pulse quickened. What do you mean? There's evidence Maxwell is trying to manipulate other witnesses, intimidate staff, and even access confidential records. Andre felt a wave of anger, not just at the man himself, but at the audacity, the nerve to keep trying when everything he'd done had already been exposed. Emerald stirred awake. What's happening? Andre leaned close. He's not done. But we're not letting him win. By midday, police had secured temporary surveillance around the hospital. Security personnel discreetly monitored entrances and exits. Every visitor ID was checked. Andre refused to leave Emerald's side for more than a minute. Meanwhile, Maxwell wasn't idle. He called lawyers, private investigators, and even someone who had once been Emerald's friend. Find out where she sleeps. Make her feel unsafe, he demanded. But for the first time, his orders weren't carried out. Fear and anger had turned allies into strangers. He sat alone, the walls of his apartment suddenly too small, too confining. His empire was crumbling, and no one wanted to be the one to fall with him. Back in the hospital, Emerald's hand trembled as she held her daughter. "Why can't he just stop?" she whispered, voice small but edged with the pain of years endured. Andre stroked her hair. "Because controlling people like him isn't about you, it's about him. And that's why we have to be smarter, stronger, and unshakable." Her tears fell freely. "I thought having you here was enough. I thought being safe meant it was over." Andre's eyes met hers. Sometimes safety is temporary. Courage is permanent. We survive, Emerald. We fight. And we win. The hospital intercom crackled. "Security. We have a suspicious individual near the maternity wing entrance." Andre's heart skipped. He rushed to the door with 2 officers following, Emerald's tiny daughter swaddled securely in his arms. A man stood there, hood pulled low, hands in pockets, eyes scanning every face in the corridor. For a heartbeat, Andre froze. Something familiar in the stance, the weight, the quiet menace. "Stay back," Andre said firmly. The man lifted his head. Maxwell Reynolds. His gaze locked on Emerald. "I just want my daughter," he said, voice smooth, almost pleading. Andre's hand didn't move. "You've lost that right." Maxwell's lips twitched into a dangerous smile. "Lost? No. Not yet." Andre's body tensed, ready to act. Emerald's eyes were wide with fear, clutching their baby tightly. Maxwell stepped forward slightly, ignoring the officers. "I know you'll defend her. But do you really think you can stop what I've started?" Andre's voice was calm but hard, unyielding. "I already am stopping it. You've gone too far this time." Maxwell's smirk faltered, replaced by something sharper, calculated, dangerous. He glanced over his shoulder at a nearby vent, a hallway entrance, and whispered to someone unseen. Andre's pulse spiked. "What did you just do?" Maxwell didn't answer. He stepped back, hands raised slightly in mock surrender. "Let's see how far you're willing to go." Before Andre could react further, the fire alarm blared. Red lights flashed. Panic rippled through the hallway. Patients, visitors, and staff began moving toward the exits. Maxwell vanished into the crowd. Andre tightened his grip on Emerald and their daughter. "He's inside," he said, voice low, fury coiling. "And he's not done. Not yet." Emerald's chest heaved. "I thought." "You thought wrong," Andre interrupted. "But we survive. We fight. We protect what matters. Always." Outside, the city lights reflected off the wet pavement. Somewhere nearby, Maxwell watched from the shadows, smiling thinly. And the next move. Nobody could predict. Maxwell had escalated. But Andre had learned something too. He could match every move, anticipate every threat. And the final confrontation was coming. The storm outside mirrored the one inside. And when the doors to the maternity wing finally opened again, nobody would be safe. Not Maxwell, not Emerald, not Andre, and certainly not the future he had tried to destroy. The storm had passed, but the tension inside the hospital didn't lift. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance, a reminder that the world outside still demanded accountability. Inside, Andre moved like a shadow, alert and protective, carrying their newborn daughter as Emerald leaned heavily on his arm, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. Maxwell Reynolds had disappeared during the chaos, but his presence lingered, heavy and threatening. The security team had locked down the maternity wing, staff doubled on patrol, but Andre knew him, knew that he didn't stop until he felt complete control. Then came the call. "Sir, we located him," the lead detective said, voice taut with urgency. "He's at the parking garage beneath the hospital. Alone. Armed with a briefcase. Appears agitated." Andre tightened his jaw. "I'll handle this." Emerald's grip on his arm tightened. "No. Andre. Don't. He'll do something to you." Andre shook his head. "He already tried to hurt you. I won't let him touch either of you again. Not today. Not ever." Andre walked through the parking garage, boots echoing against the concrete. Maxwell's figure emerged from behind a column, briefcase in hand, eyes wild but calculating. "Ah, the soldier," Maxwell said, voice tight with forced charm. "Always in uniform, always trying to look heroic." "Leave," Andre said, voice low but firm. "Walk away while you still can." Maxwell laughed sharply, the sound bouncing off the walls. "Walk away? You think I'll let her take everything from me? My life? My reputation? My family?" Andre stepped closer, keeping the baby cradled in his arms. "You lost that the moment you chose to humiliate her. The moment you tried to control her. It's over, Maxwell." Maxwell slammed the briefcase open. Inside were documents, personal files, emails, photos, threats woven into evidence of intimacy he had no right to reveal. "If I go down, she goes with me," he shouted. Andre didn't flinch. "No one goes with you. You're done manipulating, threatening, and lying." Maxwell's hands shook as he grabbed a folder and waved it toward the elevator. "If this goes public, you all, your family, your friends, will regret it." Andre took a measured step forward. "The truth is already out. The world has seen you for who you really are. And the people who matter. They won't be scared of you anymore. Not Emerald. Not our daughter. Not me." Maxwell's face twisted into fury. He lunged toward the briefcase, but Andre intercepted him with a controlled, precise move. The folder skittered across the concrete, spilling its contents. Papers fluttered like wounded birds across the garage floor. Maxwell froze. Rage burned in his eyes, but for the first time, he felt the panic of being powerless. Andre's voice cut through the tension. "This is the last warning. Walk away. You'll answer for every lie, every threat, every act of cruelty. The law won't ignore you, and neither will the people whose lives you tried to destroy." Maxwell's chest heaved. He looked at Andre, at Emerald, at the baby asleep in her father's arms, and the gravity of everything he had lost hit him like a punch. "You think this ends here?" Maxwell hissed. "You think people will forget what I—" A sharp whistle cut him off. Police cars flooded the garage. Officers surrounded him, weapons drawn but ready to act with precision. Maxwell's bluff, his bravado, had finally met reality. Andre stepped back, holding Emerald and their daughter protectively. "It ends now, Maxwell. For good." Maxwell's shoulders slumped. The fire in his eyes dimmed to something closer to fear. The world had turned against him. Clients, sponsors, family, and friends, all gone. Justice wasn't instant, but it was inevitable. The officers moved in. Maxwell's protests dissolved into silence as he was cuffed and read his rights. The briefcase, once a weapon of threats, was secured. Emerald's knees buckled, and Andre held her close. "It's over," he whispered. Tears ran freely down her cheeks. "We're safe." For the first time in years, Emerald allowed herself to breathe fully. The terror, the trauma, the manipulation, they hadn't won. She had survived. She had reclaimed her life. As she watched Andre cradle their daughter, she realized the power of protection and love, the strength that comes from standing firm, and the victory in refusing to be silenced. Weeks later, The court proceedings were swift. Evidence, witness statements, and public video documented everything. Maxwell Reynolds faced legal consequences for assault, harassment, and intimidation. His reputation, built on manipulation and charm, lay in ruins. Emerald returned home with Andre and their daughter, Ava. The house, once quiet and fearful, was filled with the light of laughter, the sound of small feet, and the certainty that love, protection, and resilience could conquer even the cruelest intentions. Andre watched Emerald gently rocking Ava in her arms. "She's going to grow up in a safe world," he said softly. Emerald smiled through tears. A world she didn't have to inherit from him. Maxwell Reynolds ended defeated, alone, exposed as a coward and a manipulator. Emerald Thompson emerged as a survivor, a protector, a symbol of hope for anyone who had been silenced or humiliated. And Ava, small, fragile, alive, was the living proof that courage and love endure even when evil threatens to dominate. If you've ever suffered in silence, or watched someone you love endure abuse, let this story remind you, your voice matters. Speaking out is not just survival, it's power. Share this story, stand against manipulation, and protect those who cannot protect themselves. The battle may seem impossible, but justice, truth, and love always find a way. Subscribe now for stories that shine a light on resilience, survival, and the triumph of the human spirit, and join a community that refuses to let abusers win. Because silence protects no one, but courage saves everything.